Thank you all for coming and for your interest in our series. I appreciate it. Like Ton said, my name is Taylor Fayle. I'm an instructional designer. And if at any point after the presentation you have a question or you wanted to get some more information about something that we covered today, there's my email address. Feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to discuss with you anything that you're interested in. So I wanted to start with a brief overview of our series, Emerging Trends, and why I think it's important to talk about. As all of you know, there's been a whole lot of innovation happening over the last decade in higher education, especially in relation to the way courses are delivered using technology and online and blended courses. Unfortunately, we don't know whether certain technologies are good, right, until we try them out with faculty in a live setting. Right? So there are some really good technologies that help build in efficiencies to our workflow as teachers, and more importantly, that add value, pedagogical value to our students. On the other hand, there's some really bad technologies out there that are pretty much a waste of time and don't really help students, and they're more of a distraction. So we, in our office and other instructional designers around the university, have a lot of conversations with faculty or colleagues and instructors about these, but these conversations are kind of siloed. So we might make a lot of headway with one professor or group of instructors, and that experience and insight gets missed with other people, right? So we thought we'd make these conversations public so that we can kind of problematize these technologies and think about best practices and that kind of thing. So with that in mind, I just wanted to give a quick plug to the other two events. And I'm really excited about both of these because I don't know a whole lot about them. The second one is going to be offered by Joshua Ben, who's a social science data librarian in the MD Anderson Library. And he's doing a lot of work with mainly research faculty to like visualize all the research that they've done. But he's also excited about using that in the classroom. And then Karen Weber is going to talk to us in November about e-portfolios. She's the director of the Honors Office of Undergraduate Research in the Honors College. And she's done a lot of research on this, and I think she's writing her dissertation on e-portfolios. So we look forward to those, and I hope to see you there. All right, so today we're going to talk about video, and I wanted to give a quick roadmap about what I plan to cover. First, I want to talk about video, and all of us know that there's a lot of video going on in higher ed. Why is it an emerging trend? Seems like everyone does it, so why is it still emerging? So I want to talk about that. We're going to cover some types of instructional video, and there's a lot more out there. I just want to focus on what I see happening here at U of H, because I think that's more helpful. I'll briefly discuss some tools that you can use in the creation of your own instructional videos, both software and hardware. And then I'll spend the most of our time talking about best practices. So how can we focus our content so that it's more effective for students and more helpful for them? Okay, so is video an emerging trend? I want to talk about this in kind of a sort of oblique way by talking about something called skeuomorphism. And skeuomorphism is the idea that a derivative object has certain features of it that were necessary to the original but are no longer necessary to the derivative object. And I know that sounds kind of abstract, so I'll give you a couple of examples. Here is an original object. It's a horse-drawn carriage. And here is a derivative object. So you can see that there's a feature of this object that sort of in a metaphorical way references the original, kind of draws our attention back to the original, but it's totally unnecessary for the derivative. My mom had one of those growing up. Here's an original object. here is a derivative, right? So you can see again, I mean, for the kid to get some kind of joy out of rocking back and forth, it doesn't even have to look like a horse, right? But we want to sort of tie in the reference to the original, right? So this is kind of silly, I know, but this idea of skeuomorphism is really talked about mainly in application and software design and web design, right? So a lot of products that we see now have interfaces, and a lot of them look like or reference the original that we're used to in the real world, right? Like think of the Fayle icon, right? That's a sort of skeuomorphic reference back to an original file. Or a calendar, right? Under Steve Jobs, Apple's interfaces were very skeuomorphic, so the calendar app maintained a lot of references to the original. You can see the leather with the stitching, and if you look closely, there's like paper torn off. Okay? I think this is important because we often do this in higher education, especially with online and hybrid courses, right? We want to replicate the experience that's happening in the classroom online. So in an on-ground course, we have conversations that are hopefully meaningful for our students, and we think that we can do that in an online setting. So we have discussions happening there as well, which is kind of like a reference back to the original. One of the most common complaints I get about faculty teaching online, especially for the first time, is that this is in no way an approximation to what happens in the classroom, right? You've probably had experience with that. But I think it's especially true with video, which is what we're going to talk about today, right? So in class, we lecture, right, as instructors, and that's great. It's a great way to deliver content. So we think, let's just skeuomorphically put that online. So we capture it, and we put it on the web, right? And so I think that, I mean, the whole reason why I wanted to frame the conversation in this terms is to say, well, maybe that's not the best way to do things. And so I'm going to talk a lot about the way things are happening today and give some best practices. But there's really not a lot of research done in this area, right? So none of what I say is prescriptive. It's meant to be suggestive and hopefully encourage everyone to explore different avenues that we can take in the future. Because we're still at a very sort of early phase in, transforming on-ground classes to online, and especially with respect to video. And so a couple of ways in which video isn't really used as well as it could be are that we're not really paying attention to the learning affordances that are native to video, right? So just to give a couple of examples, in video you can have virtual field trips, right? Take students around the world in ways that you can't do in person. You can manipulate time and space with video. You can tell stories pretty easily with video. Video is great at contextualizing things, right? To giving you an overview because of the inherent movement involved in video. You can show historical footage. You can demonstrate things to students by recording you doing them right there. So these are some ways that there are certain affordances built into video, right, that don't get captured when we try to think of instructional videos as lecture only. Right? But there are also social affordances that video has sort of native to it. Especially if you're in an online setting, you can definitely build rapport with your students through video by them just seeing you and maybe seeing your excitement for the subject or the discipline that you're teaching. Students can be motivated, right, to learn. And I think more importantly is if you create instructional videos and you do them well, you can free up a lot of instructional time to have more meaningful conversations with students outside of a video setting. Right? So again, I just wanted to sort of frame our discussion today in these terms to think about ways as we go along that we can tap into the sort of native affordances that video offers us. Any questions before I continue? Okay, cool. So now I'm going to talk about types of instructional video. And like I said before, there's a lot of types that I don't have up here, but these are just the ones that are happening at the University of Houston. Okay? And I've tried to distill them down to 6 categories. There are definitely variations on all of these, and sometimes you can combine 2 of these into one, no problem. But this is sort of what I see in working with faculty. So I have examples, so we'll start actually watching some video in case anyone doesn't know what any of these things look like. Right? So first one is a talking head type thing where you're not in front of a live audience.
Assumption of a subject there, so it's also translatable as it is.
This is an ancient Greek philosophy course.
Humdinger for the next word, homoiomeres. That means having parts that are alike. So there's 2 components, homoios, which is the same, and meres, which is parts. So, right,
I know this sounds simple, but just hearing her say the word, right, actually clues the student into, first of all, the pronunciation, and then she breaks each word apart and talks about their relationship and what they mean. I think I have another example. This is on the MediaSite platform, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But this is the interface that students see whenever we record with MediaSite.
Or we can fast forward closer to the present if that would be preferable.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the colonial period and
yes.
Talk about the way in which this humoral system shaped how colonists thought about consuming New World foods and how they thought about living in a different environment.
Right. So
this is obviously a talking head, but with a little bit more dynamic feel because you have an interview kind of set up. So in this case, it's 2 historians, so experts in the field, asking questions of each other and responding. Okay, so that's talking head. Again, there's no audience there. It's just you and the camera, essentially. Both of these were done in more kind of studio setups, but you can definitely do this with a laptop and your webcam right there. So the next category is what I call slidecast. I don't know if that's technically the term for it, but for most professors, if they haven't done video before, this is the sort of way into it, because most people use PowerPoint, and basically you load your PowerPoint up, you press record, and you speak, and it records the PowerPoint and your voice at the same time. So there's not a lot of startup for this. And here's an example. This is from Dr. Julia Kleinheider.
Expectations for a film. What types of themes or stories do you expect? You can sort of read a brief summary of the film, look at a sort of film poster, or look at a DVD case, and kind of already start thinking about what the film might be about.
So you'll notice a lot of my examples are from the social sciences. Hopefully we can translate these into other disciplines. Here is another one. That's a demonstration. I'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so anyway, that's a slidecast. So you have your slides, you record your screen in your voice, and then you can publish it without any editing, and your students can watch. So the next one is a screencast, which isn't sort of limited to the framework of your PowerPoint presentation. You can use anything on your screen can get recorded, right? So any application that you have. in my personal opinion, this one taps into a lot of those native affordances of video that I talked about, right? Because you have the whole World Wide Web at your fingertips. You can record, you can do the virtual field trips, you can record video. I mean, you can record like a YouTube video and then stop it and comment and then keep playing it. Here's an example of one. This is from a Jewish culture class.
Is River Oaks, and this is the River Oaks Country Club. Now, River Oaks is a community that was established in Houston quite a while ago. And since Houston does not have zoning, different neighborhoods have deed restrictions. And they have, of course, realtors who will sell property in these neighborhoods. And River Oaks was a restricted neighborhood.
Okay, so anyways, you can see how he starts actually a little bit before that, talking about the University of Houston, where it is in context, and then shows where the Jewish people in Houston settled, why they settled where they did, and really how close we are to that history. Hi, Michael. So that is one example of a screencast. Here is one more. This one's a little bit more advanced, but just so you can see the potentiality there.
There we go. That's my son Alec, not at all excited about being part of this experiment. A little concerned about the family he found himself plopped into, but here we go. We take off and we are going. Gulf Freeway. We are heading to the elementary school. Waiting line. Drop him off. And we are off, heading through downtown, hanging a left, heading south. We are at the daycare, looking at a trike. Oh, and now we're cutting through the 3rd Ward, heading towards UH, where I work and you all go to school. One of the things that's been interesting for me is that the 3rd Ward has turned out to be an endlessly fascinating neighborhood. It's one of those places in the city where I have found over and over again in the street names, in the places, in the open and closed storefronts, in the shotgun houses, all kinds of surprise and magic.
All right, so this is, I think, a good example, and I'll talk more about this later, but of presenting yourself as the expert. And a lot of times what that means is being able to see the context while you're looking at the details, right? So most of us who are not historians don't walk around and look at street signs and ask ourselves, why is that street named this, right? And so this is a good example of using video to show students what it's like to be an expert in this field, right? So but really, I mean, he took his iPhone, captured some video, loaded it up on his computer, and then started recording his computer and just talked through it. So that's another example of a screencast. Okay. Next up, we're going to switch to tablet recording, which is a way to capture content that's more found in the sciences and mathematics. This was popularized by a guy named Solomon Kahn, who started the Khan Academy. So these are pretty low-tech DIY kinds of videos that you can do. And here is an example from Dr. Morgan. And you can just kind of see what it looks like. I think that...
Because those 2 columns are the pivot columns for A. So I'll write that down.
So you get the idea. Okay, next up we have lecture capture, which is the most different out of all of these because you have an audience in front of you, right? You're recording a class that is populated by students. You're saving it for later and then putting it online. Here's a course we recorded last spring. It's a history course.
To include the creation of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, that it also included an important
So you get the
aspect
PowerPoint and then the video of the
currency
instructor
reform
lecturing.
or financial reform, that world currencies were now pegged to the US dollar, and the US dollar in turn was guaranteed by gold, with the idea that $35 would give you 1 ounce of gold.
All right, and then, do we have one more? Oh yeah, this is an example from a statistics class in Bauer, I believe.
And what was the total amount we spent buying each input to our case? Okay. So now I just want to do a sum formula and copy it down. To the
So here he's doing actually a screencast live while he's recording, while he's lecturing. So you get the screencast and the lecture with the students in front of you.
So in other words, I want to get the total amount we spent. So I would just say.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that recorded using MediaSite?
Yes, it was. Yeah, as far as I know, the only lecture capture technology we have on campus is MediaSite. Yeah, and that's, if you want to do that route, then you have to go, through your college, and it's usually managed at the college level, because it's each college has to buy that equipment. Okay, then the last one is demonstration. This is a video we did this summer with dance department.
So we're going to start in fifth position. You're going to come this way. And we're going to shove it to the side on one. And side, the left foot goes to the back. Back, the right foot goes side, and then close, the left foot closes front. So you will hear me say side, back, side, front. And if you...
So you get the idea. It's a demonstration. It just happens to be dance. It can be done in any setting, I think, especially like in a lab setting. I think would be a cool way to do this. And then this last one was one we did last summer.
Up for here? Okay, behind your neck? I need you to go call 911 and tell them that we have a potential C-spine injury. When you see them, bring them back right here, okay? Got it. All right, Matt. Are you feeling tingling in your arms and your...
My hands.
Okay, can you move your fingers, your toes?
All right, so again, just a demonstration and HHP, yes?
Are these also done through MediaSite, or what kind of equipment is required for this, and then the ballet demonstration?
A camera? I mean, if you have a camera, and this one, our office did, so we have some experience with this. But the ballet ones, and we did as well. But you could just set up a camera and record it. This one?
Yeah, and the other one, the dance one?
The dance one did. Yeah, this one, we used the onboard mic on the camera.
What about the tablet recording video, the math problem solution?
Yes, sir.
Like, how was he able to write? I mean, the writing was not of that good quality.
Yeah, he used a mouse, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there are peripherals that you can buy, like they have. I know a lot of people use the trackpad with the stylus kind of thing.
Are you going to live scribe or something like that? Yeah. But
Yeah.
the thing is, they are a little expensive. So, is there any other?
I think that's why they go this route. A lot of the people in the mathematics department use PDF Annotate. It's a software, and you just load up a PDF into it, and you can use a mouse or a trackpad, or if you have some sort of stylus. Mm-hmm. And then you just record with some screencast software, whatever it is you're doing.
You don't have anything. I have no idea. That's why
We're gonna get there, but that I'm just showing you the types of video right now. Yeah, yes, sir.
I just said we use Camtasia, and
Yeah.
we just write on it with a tablet and a stylus.
Right.
So it's really easy.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so that's like the landscape, right? And you can see there's a lot of different variations, a lot of different ways to present your content. And that's what's more or less what's going on here at the University of Houston. All right? So let's talk a little bit, because you guys asked about it, tools. Now, I wasn't planning on spending a lot of time on this because the main reason is that everyone's different. And there's no like one solution that will work for everyone. I mean, I was talking to my wife last night. She likes the Apple Maps, thing. And I like the Google Maps. And they're totally the same. I mean, they do the exact same thing. Okay, well. But, I mean, even the interface, people have preferences. So, there's not a sort of one-size-fits-all solution. But I knew that there would be some interest, so I just sort of rounded up what I think are some solid choices as far as creating your own content. And here they are. The two ones at the top left are sort of like the industry standard, I guess. Camtasia is the more, both are by a company called TechSmith. Camtasia is a more expensive one, and it's also got more features, which also means there's a little bit more learning curve. But if you're going to do video and you're going to do it a lot, then it might be a good option. Snagit is a more like entry-level version. It's I think Camtasia is around $130. Snagit's around $30. And the thing actually I like about these two, which I haven't really used a lot, is they have really good support. And I'll just show you a little bit. They have a lot of these really cool tutorials or tips and tricks about how you can maximize your productivity using that product. And I think I have one for Camtasia too. The Camtasia one is really extensive. So they have this this chart, right? And these are all Camtasia produced videos that apply, I think, also for any other software you're using. So if you just want to piggyback on them on their tips and tricks, it's pretty helpful. And you can see there's a level here. So they have like level 1, level 2, and then I think they go up to level 3, or maybe just 2. So that would be a good reason to go with those two, is that they have really good support and they're constantly doing updates and providing like how-tos and FAQs. The next two, MyMediaSite and Collaborate, are actually the only two enterprise-level ones that we support here at U of H. MyMediaSite is available for free for any faculty who'd like to use it, and there's a couple things that are nice about it. One, it's super easy to use. And that's mainly because you don't get any features that you get in a product like Snagit or Camtasia. It's just you record your screen, you load it up on the web, and you're done. If you're not happy with it, you got to do it all over again. So the other good thing that's nice about MyMediaSite is it's tied into our Active Directory system. So anyone who watches it has to log in, and MediaSite keeps data on all their activity. So you can get really good feedback on where students are watching your videos, if they're watching them. And I'll show you a quick screenshot of the dashboard. So this is a lecture that's actually being used this semester. And there's a lot more data here. This is just the dashboard. But you can see how many people have viewed it, 62 total. And when they viewed it, how much time they watched. Right? So you can see the video is an hour and 14 minutes long. Students watched 25 minutes of it. And you can see where they watched it. Right? Red being the part they watched the most and blue being the part they watched the least. So this is pretty typical. Right? If you look at any of these presentations, you see this kind of trend. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the best practices. But I don't know, as an instructor, I think it's nice to be able to look at that data and say, is this worth it? So that's the benefit with My Media Site. The other thing is you can upload videos that you've recorded outside of My Media Site to the My Media Site platform and get the same kind of data. So if you're a Camtasia person and you just need somewhere to host your content, you can still get a My Media Site account and then upload your content there, and then you can get all this data. A lot of people use Collaborate to do screencasts, and that's a building block plugin for Blackboard, and so we see that a lot also in the math department. They use this for recording their online lectures, and they do a lot of annotating, and it's pretty seamless. You can save that lecture and then link to it on your Blackboard page. Students can open it up right there. So those are kind of like the 4 main ones. There's also some other ones that I put on here. And the basic distinction when you're looking for screencast software or video capture software is whether they host online, if they are also a hosting platform, or if you just get the video and you have to find a place to host it. Some of the ones that are coming out, like for instance the Tapes app, is really nice because you record it and automatically you get a link and you can send it to someone. There's also a lot of limitations with those because you can't load up a ton of hour-and-a-half long lectures. So for instance, the Tapes one, it's super seamless, but you get 3 minutes. And you might think, wow, that's not enough time at all. But if you're using it, say, for doing grading feedback, which a lot of professors are doing, you can record the student's paper, record your comments, and then send them the link, and they can have that feedback right there. And 3 minutes, you don't want to go longer than 3 minutes when you're doing that kind of thing.
Is Tapes video or audio or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you can record yourself. It's just your screen.
Just the screen.
Yeah. Screener is another web-based platform that you can use. I just saw someone from the library sent me a video that they did for like research skills, and they used TinyTake, which I hadn't really heard of, but it produced a nice video, and they also have a hosting platform. And my go-to, because I use Mac, is QuickTime. So that's a free screencast app you can use for a Mac. And then Explain Everything is a tablet application for iOS devices. So you can record, kind of like the tablet drawing we saw earlier, and it records your screen and your audio as well. So, yes, sir.
Maybe you're going to come to this, but you talked about hour-and-a-half videos. Are we going to talk later about what makes sense in terms of video length? Because we already know they're doing it out after 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I don't know if that's part of your
It is.
We can make them 5 hours, but nobody's going to watch it.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Gotcha.
But thank you.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So are you saying that Screener and TinyTake are the only platforms? Like Camtasia doesn't have its own platform. So if you create a video in Camtasia, where do you post that?
I mean, that's up to you. So you can. Yeah.
Service space that you get in your account, and you can post it, and you get a tiny URL.
Okay.
Or you could post to, like you said, My Media Site if you want data.
Yeah.
YouTube, you could do it for YouTube.
But it's Camtasia is screencast.com, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So
a.
when you create your account, if you use some space, and if you pay, you will move more.
Got it.
Yeah. You can always use YouTube if you're cool with it being out there, because they don't have any limitations, which is nice. Or you can host it on like Vimeo, which is paid. Yeah. So, but I wouldn't say that those are the only ones, because there's going to be one next week that comes out, and it's like. Okay. So hardware. obviously, you have to have a computer, and these are two. I mean, most computers have a webcam built in. If you don't have one, this Logitech webcam is really nice. We have one in our office. It takes HD video and it captures audio pretty well, and also it's pretty cheap. It's like $100. Okay. More importantly is the microphone, right? I think that the most important thing for a screencast is the audio quality. And if you're using your onboard microphone, it's going to sound kind of tinny and distant, right? So even if you don't have a microphone, use your headphones. If that's even better. But this microphone is really good. It's a USB, so you just plug it right into your computer. It's got a really solid build, and it takes excellent audio. I got one like a year or two ago for $100. So if you plan on doing a lot of these, then I think that that's a pretty good option. There are others out there, but they're generally more expensive, and trying to keep it cheap here. So for $200, that's really all you need, and I wouldn't spend more than that. Any questions or other suggestions for hardware? Yeah.
Do you have any hardware suggestions for like videos like the demonstrations that you were saying? Would you use something like that, or do you need like a?
Oh, for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd need some kind of.
Tripod and all that good
Yeah, I didn't plan to talk about that today, but if you're going to do that, probably a DSLR camera with video is the best way to go, because you can interchange the lenses.
I may have missed this. For the Logitech webcam, if you have a webcam on your computer, is that usually sufficient, or are you saying this is preferable?
I mean, I think if your computer is relatively new, it's fine. Yeah. All right. So that was just a brief overview of the tools that you can use. And really quickly, let's get to some best practices. So you're going to put time into these videos. You want students to watch them. How do you get them to watch them? You have to be relevant. I know that seems kind of obvious. I'm the professor. Obviously, I'm relevant. But it's not always the case that the content you're delivering through your video is relevant. The biggest single instance of this I see is when instructors duplicate the content that's in the textbook, right? Let the textbook do the work, right? I mean, offload as much information as you can, factual stuff, to other sources. And where you can add value is with your experience as an expert in this field. So anecdotes are great. Just show students what it's like to think like an expert in this field, in this area. Especially, I think, is good is that video is great at giving context, at providing narrative overviews. It's not a great medium for delivering very detailed argumentations, right? And so if you're doing video, try to keep a conversational tone. Don't use a lot of clauses in your speech. Just keep it simple, and I think that your own experience is what is the most valuable. And lastly, with being relevant, it's really important to tie this to an assessment, right? And you can do that two ways. One is you can assess students on what you say in the video, which means you have to watch your videos, right? Which is not something we like to do. So you record the video, you watch it, and while you're watching it, you write questions out. I mean, if you don't do that, then students aren't really going to watch it. The alternative is it has to be relevant in the sense that it has to help students on their assessments that aren't necessarily tied to that video, right? So if your students know on a consistent basis that if they watch the video, they're going to do better on their assessments, then it's relevant, right? So so I put that first because I think it's a really important point. Secondly, be timely. If video is central to your course, you have to get it up in the appropriate amount of time for students to watch it. And academics are notoriously deadline driven, so this is really difficult. But if you're gonna do video, it has to be done well in advance. So you have to build in time into your workflow to get it up soon for your students. And be consistent, right? Try not to throw students curveballs with your video. Like one week they get it on Monday, the next week they get it on Thursday. Courses are rituals, right? And the sooner you can get students involved in the ritual of the course, then the better they will succeed. So if you have one video a week, post it every week the same day. Or if you have two, post them the same day. Just keep a pattern. You can also throw in videos that aren't necessarily part of that pattern, that are sort of just-in-time instructional videos, if there's a concept that needs further articulation. But that's in addition to the consistent pattern that you're following throughout the course. Here's to your point, right? Be concise. I don't think concise means short, right? And I say that because there's a lot of really good lectures that are longer, that are very well planned and concise. And I actually, over in engineering, they have a lot of lectures captured for their subsea engineering program that are really, really good. And students consistently watch them all the way through. So there are examples of people who are concise but not necessarily short. On the other hand, I think that, because we record a lot of videos on instructors' behalf, and that forces instructors to plan ahead of time, right? Because they know they're going to come in and they have like an hour to record their lecture, so they know that they have to know what they're saying, right? So in that sense, they've scripted out a little bit, even if it's not completely read, which is not a good idea. So that's a big thing with the planning. There's also some questions that you can ask yourself while you're planning your lecture or your instructional content. What do I want to capture in the recording? Right? What are my instructional goals for this particular video? Why is it important to capture information this way? Which is good. If you can communicate the information to students by writing it or in some other means, is it necessary to have a video? Right? And this goes back to what are the affordance of video that we get that we don't get in other medium. How does this video fit into the overall structure of my course? Right? Is it really meeting the course goals that I set for my students? And then, what materials do I need to prepare for this video? Do I need to have a PDF with some problems set up so I can then work them out for the students, etc.? Be transparent. This is a pretty big one. Whenever you're recording a video, you want to use signposts very heavily, right? So tell students what you're going to cover it, and then tell them what they covered. And then, encourage sort of active viewing. So you can ask questions, during the video that sort of preempt content that's coming in the next video. So like maybe leave them a little bit cliffhanging, saying, oh, this is a really interesting topic, it raises these questions, watch the next video to find the answers, or something like that. Yeah, so repetition is good. Recapitulate where you've been. Summarize key features. Maybe use chaptering, right? So they know in this video this is what they're getting, instead of because sometimes you see videos that have titles that aren't really clear about what they're going to cover. I also encourage you to put little descriptions if you're putting them on Blackboard that sort of give a summary of what's going to be covered. Be human, right? We are not trained actors that can memorize our lines and present them in ways that don't seem like they're memorized. So it's okay to be yourself, and there's no data that shows really high quality studio recordings are any more better at communicating your instructional goals than a webcam or a screencast, right? Trying to wrap it up, sorry. And then lastly, iterate endlessly. You can't, be an expert the first time you do video on your own. So you just have to keep doing it, keep at it. You'll learn as you go. You'll learn from students' feedback. So explore different areas. Get out there on the web and see what other people are doing at different universities. Maybe take a MOOC or two and see just what other types of video are out there. So skipped over a lot, but that's basically what I have for you. Are there any questions or any? If you want to share your own experience with video, certainly let me know. Yeah.
Any thoughts on the type of content that I teach a course that's highly conceptual, formulas. I can't show people how to work through Excel in the business school, so it'd be nice if there was Excel spreadsheets for ethics, but they don't really work. Can you comment on that a little bit? Especially in class, I would think you'd have a lot of that kind of conceptual stuff.
Yeah, right. That's a good question. I mean, what about kind of live problems that you see in today's world? So you could you could on your screen pull up a article, right, that has some sort of issues related to your field, highlight certain passages of the article, and then reflect on, based on the principles you've been covering, what kind of ethical theory, how can we apply certain ethical theory to this particular case? Yeah, but I see your point that it's hard to sort of.
The content matters. I mean,
yes, certainly.
There's two things that I do. One, there's a series of video cases that a faculty member at DePaul University created.
Okay.
Basically with people that have done unethical things and went to federal prison telling their story.
Yeah.
So it's very compelling because these are real people that have spent time in prison.
Yeah.
They don't all go to prison, but they should. But the story, it humanizes the experience.
Certainly.
So the students say, that woman looks like my mother,
Yeah.
And then I use a simulation as well, sort of based on Deepwater Horizon simulation that's managerial ethics. But all that stuff might be tied together.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that affective dimension translates really well, right? Especially with seeing actual people, in these situations, for sure.
It's hard for students to connect sometimes with you're talking about people in jail. Well, this one looks disordered.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of that history professor again. He's like saying, okay, history is happening right here under our feet. Let's try to make the connection.
That brings up a related question. When you're using videos from another source, what's the copyright issue? Can you just, anything you can download, you can share?
It's probably not the best approach.
Okay, so what's a better approach?
Wow. So, yeah, certainly you should, consider copyright issues when you're using other sources. I'll show you a website that I helped develop that uses a lot of open educational resources. Right, so this is an art history course, and she just links to the source that's already on the web. So my sense is if it's on the web and it's publicly available, I think you're pretty safe. Like, she has some BBC stuff, some TEDx stuff, that kind of thing. I think where you get into trouble maybe is downloading the content and then hosting it on our own servers, right? I mean, there's the whole issue of fair use, like what constitutes fair use. I'm not expert in that area. There are some people in the library who can help with that. If you're going to use, a lot of people in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences use movies in their courses, and they just have students buy them as if they were buying a textbook. Right? The library also has a streaming service called Canopy, and all those copyrights have been purchased with their subscription, so you can try to find content that way. Yeah.
One thing also, when you're for videos, you want to borrow or use videos, actually contact the company or person. There's a couple problems you run into. One, if you go to a site, it may not be permanent. The time as soon as you get around to seeing it, it can be gone.
Right.
And that's a problem, and they can't continue looking at it. But in the past, we've had success with reaching out. Sometimes they're flattered, sometimes they don't want to either, but you can reach out to them and find out. And sometimes they'll share more with you. So that's a good way to do it.
And can't the library help facilitate that process? Yeah.
Are you familiar with, and maybe this is a question for Teresa and Costa over here, and not you, but we've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, and I'm always looking for things on campus like, well, what are the best practices of people that have gone before me, right here on campus, what really works? Do you guys do something like that in class where you've got a best practices site where you direct your faculty? I'd like to see someone's whole course where they've used a lot of the principles, not only video, but all the online stuff. But I've looked at MOOCs, I've looked at that other stuff. Do we have anything on campus that you're aware of like that?
We do not. Not that I'm aware of. I would like to develop something like that. I mean, because all this stuff is just for me working with people and kind of seeing.
Can I just have control of your computer and just log in?
Sure. Come on over. Yeah, but certainly, we're trying to build towards that kind of resource for faculty. It is I would say difficult because, as an instructor, you don't want to just open the world to your course. I mean, it's kind of a private thing. So, yeah.
I think regarding best practices, there's kind of two categories. One is technical best practices. There's some things that you need to do because they work well. Start with where you speak, place a microphone, camera, those kind of things. But I think it's important too. One thing that I see is not to be too academic. Just have fun with it. If you're talking about a store or a concept or something, take a GoPro, take your iPhone, walk with it, talk with it, be yourself with it.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit in front of a computer. You can enjoy it. That's the thing. If the kids can understand you, that's 90% of it. And keep it short enough.
Yeah.
Drive time, 10, 15 minutes. As far as best practices, overall, generally technical best practices, there could be some things around that, but otherwise, just have a good time. Get your content out, be yourself. And that's where I hesitate in sharing other things because don't replicate someone else. What works in your content may not work for you and your personality.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to show the range that at least I've seen. Yeah, because like you said, you want the course and the video that's part of the course to take on your own personality. And I think that's the most engaging thing for students to see, right? You engaged in a subject and, modeling the kinds of thinking and the excitement for students. I think that's really important.
But we don't really know what the pedagogical results are, right? I mean, you've said that a couple times. We don't really know what works. We don't know what engaged the students. We don't know what motivated the students.
Well, how would you measure that? I mean, that's what I think he's saying. It's very sort of uneven, right? I mean, what might work really well in mathematics would totally fall flat in a Spanish course, say. So, I mean, we met with the Coursera representative the other day, and they have massive amount of data on tying assessments to video, right? And their little formula is every 1 to 2 hours of video, you have a formative assessment, and every 4 to 6 hours of video, you have a summative assessment. But that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't tell you anything about the kind of video, the kind of assessment, so, yeah. But that's why I have these kinds of conversations.
Coursera?
What's that?
The university has a relationship with Coursera?
Yeah, so. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for coming, and please come back to the next ones.